Okay, I don't know where my camera is apparently, or my camera isn't showing myself. Hold on, let me try to fix that here real quick. There we go. Hey, there I am. And let's go ahead and get the proper window up so you guys can actually see what I'm seeing. There we go. And now we're going to go ahead and set up the headset audio, but just, let me actually get through an actual, honest to gosh, intro, shall we? Welcome back to another Unreal Engine study session. I'm your host, Strangebird Jim. We're going to be joined by Blackheart in just a second here. I see him on the stage. Don't worry, Blackheart. I'll be getting to you in just a second there. But we're continuing our series on Unreal to learn as much as we can about the engine before we start really diving into trying to make something. Uh, the first plan is to make, a clone of something just to kind of learn everything that we can about it. See if we can build something that's 2D first. And then we take everything that we've learned, these study sessions that we're doing right now, as well as the builds that we're going to be doing, and the build that will do for the clone, and then eventually make something ourselves together. We're probably going to be putting on a lot of hats, art hats, sound hats, um, musician hats. Who knows? We're going to need to be doing a lot because um, we can't expect anybody to, um, put in their free time to join us on this endeavor as well, especially when uh, we're not, we haven't like really offered like a grand plan yet. So, but we'll get to that. Okay, that's later. So, um, but yeah, let's go ahead and add Blackheart in, and we will go from there.
Hello there. How
Hey,
you doing?
hey there, Blackheart. How's it going there, bud?
I'm doing hey okay.
That's good to hear. Okay, so last yesterday we finished off the sound classes. We got all the way down through the legacy and studied all those features and so on and so forth. So we don't need to cover anything more there. Um, Obviously, um, I'm not expecting anybody to really memorize all this because that's a lot of information to memorize. Um, you know, and for me, typically how my memory works is that I have to kind of do something over and over and over again to really have it like solidified in long-term memory. Um,
Yeah,
a,
same.
a lot of this
Whenever
is,
I learn something, I tend to have like a cheat sheet nearby to reference tools and things like that.
yeah. I mean, thankfully the documentation is here to be kind of like a cheat sheet, but yeah. Um, but still, you know, we've covered all these topics so far with just the audio itself, and I mean that is a lot of information, and a lot of it's pretty much short term, and when short term memory and it's probably already gone. So, um, but we're gonna be moving on to the next topic, which is audio console commands. Now, I took a look through this briefly, and oh my gosh.
Yeah, it is quite a bit.
For those of you that might not see, you have the scrolling bar here, and if you notice how small it is and how much we're going through on this, and I haven't even reached the bottom yet. There we go. So there's a lot of information here. Um, I have a funny feeling that we're probably gonna need to just skip a lot of this, to be honest,
Yeah. One of the
because
tags does say debug. It is used for the debugging one of the tags, so
yeah,
hopefully we might not need to rely on this. if it's for debugging, like if we're well, even if we have a lot of issues with audio, but until then, hopefully we don't need to mess with it.
Well, I mean, let's face it. Any kind of debugging is pretty much going to be required. You know,
No, but
um,
when it comes to audio, I rather not.
I grant you on that. I really wouldn't want to be trying to debug audio, but I mean, if we're going to make a game ourselves, then we may need to. So.
It'll be like a
Um,
last resort, having to rely on this.
Uh, Probably, but we'll have to. We may need to tackle it at some point in the future, and therefore, a lot of these commands might be useful for us. When we come along. Um, like here it says clear muted sounds and solos. So you know, or how long to wait for the command buffer flush to complete, or something along those lines. So it's some of these might be very useful, but yeah, it's overall, you know, obviously whenever you're doing any kind of coding, for those of you that if you're like brand new to coding, okay, um, it is very rare to be able to code up something perfectly the first time through. Okay.
Yeah.
Whenever you're coding up something, you know, the possibility of missing like a semicolon or mistyping a variable or mistyping a class or mistyping a function or something along those lines,
Typo errors are the most common errors.
yeah, um, could happen quite often. Other times it might be more of a runtime where uh, it you're expecting it to go into a function, but it's not. So now you're trying to figure out why isn't it going into said function. Um, you
Yeah,
know,
then debugging is useful.
yeah. So you're often needing to try to make sure that you're troubleshooting your code, making sure that it works the way you want it to work. Um, because if you don't, um, um, now don't get me wrong, I haven't really done a whole lot of coding projects myself. Not in comparison to other programmers, I haven't done a ton, but I have done some. Can't say that, my list is, you know, vast, but, um, you know, in all the times that I've ever programmed, all the programs that I've ever written, from the smallest, from like Hello World, all the way up to, um, you know, building Minesweeper or, the game of Risk. Um, you know, there was only one time where I did a project from top to bottom without any errors. I coded it out, no errors. I ran it. It did exactly what I needed it to do. And I was stupefied. I was like going, wait, did I just do that? I was in disbelief that I was able to do that. Okay. So normally you'd experience, some kind of error, something going wrong for you to, deal with. But that happened once for me. Wrote up something fairly complex, compiled it, ran it, worked perfectly. No error codes, um, no typos, and the input and output would match perfectly with what I needed it to do. So, um, and that happened once. I could literally count it one time. So, um, so um, that kind of feeling doesn't happen that often. So you need to learn how to be a debugger. You're going to need to learn how to look at your code and try to figure out what you did wrong. So, you know, uh, tools like Visual Studio will offer some really good debugging tools for you to find the error, but you know, sometimes you might need to just use simple commands to to isolate. So, but enough talking about past stuff. Let me let me go into actually talking about this directly. Unless you have a story yourself there, Blackheart, that you want to
No,
share. No? Okay.
no.
So, um, audio console commands are reference for console commands that can be used with the Unreal Audio Engine. So, advanced. When debugging games or other projects on Unreal Engine, it can be helpful to send commands to your game or the editor directly while it is running. It is especially true for audio. If you are trying to trace a bug that only occurs in narrow or unknown circumstances, console commands can help by enabling or disabling specific functionalities, or by altering a significant parameter in real time. So, you know, how to use the console? Open the console command console by pressing the tilde key on the keyboard, which is, to the left of the one button above tab, typically on most, well, on QWERTY keyboards anyway. If it's on like a different keyboard, then I wouldn't really know. But um, note that on British English keyboards, the key used is a grave key, which is basically the same key, really. But um, if the tilde key does not open the console, or if you want to use a different key, you can change the keyboard bindings by going to Project Settings, Engine, Input, and Console keys. So, I mean, you can change them, but typically that's a common key that is used for most command consoles because it's kind of typically out of the way, so you don't accidentally, push it typically. But if you feel like it's still in the way, then at least they give you a method of changing that. So
Mm.
when using the console commands, you may also want to open the output log. This can be set at Window, Developer Tools, and Output Log. I'm familiar with the output log, but thank you. Most audio console commands involve setting a given console variable, cvar. Okay, that's helpful. Console variable to desired value through the syntax cvar name and then value. Okay. For example, to debug a sound mix, you could set the cvar au.debug.soundmixes to true using the command au debug soundmixes 1 in the console where 1 is equal to true. Okay. Um, you can also find more information about the usage of given cvar by entering the command cvar name and then question mark. Okay, so that's good. Um, so basically, if you want to learn more about what the sound mixes does, then you can just put that in and then put a question mark afterwards. Like, the command here for, setting it true, you would basically do the exact same thing, but change the one to a question mark, and it'll tell you more about that command. So technically, you don't really even, I mean, this might be good in terms of knowing what's out there, um, but you don't necessarily need this particular page to learn about the commands. You might need to look at the page to find the command in the first place, but you know, you won't necessarily need to use it to, learn what the command does. So, yeah. Um, you know, it this might be helpful if you like maybe you're looking at like a script or something like that. Like maybe someone put together a script where they're kind of showing like multiple debug options and you're not quite sure what those debugs are all about. So you can kind of use this to try to learn exactly what that script is doing. Maybe if if even that's possible, I don't really know, but
Yeah, I find it like mostly useful for either a tester or if you pass a project on to someone new.
yeah. Um, yeah. Or you know you're seeing it for the first time. You're coming into maybe a project and seeing that script for the first time. You're like, okay, I've never seen that command form before. Let me see what that's all about. Then there you go. Um, Commands you type into the console will affect your editor in real time. Console commands can be executed from within the game, from within the editor, or if the game has been started by using the negative server switch from the server's console. Okay. Um, Common audio CVARs and use cases. Console commands and CVARs that are audio specific begin with AU, with the exception of a handful of older functions. Because the console supports auto suggestion, you can get a list of available commands by typing AU. Oh, okay. So you don't, you can kind of see some of these almost automatically just by typing it in, and it gives you that auto suggestion. So that's good. That's handy. And the console is going through the list of commands. Um, So here's like three that are apparently common: AU debug sound mixes, AU dump active sounds, and an audio memory report or mem report. So I don't feel like we should really go through these, or unless you want me to. You want me to go through
Um,
these three? Because obviously,
uh,
what's beyond is just like a table full of everything beyond that,
yeah,
and
pretty much.
And it's like, okay, that's a lot of information, and we can move on to something else. I mean, if necessary, we can always come back to it. But for now, I don't think that we really need to try to. I mean, don't get me wrong.
Yeah, if we need to like get a refresher, maybe we try to find something when we have to use it, and maybe then we come back to it.
Yeah,
Right now, yeah, I don't feel like it is necessary for us to read the description.
yeah. Um, I once knew. I had a friend once before that he used a text editor to write his code. And he got so proficient at that text editor. Um, what was it called again? It's been a long time since I touched it personally. Um, it's like it's like DI or something like that. I forget the name of it. But it was basically like a text editor that you can basically jump to whatever you wanted to. It had like multiple shortcut keys they could use to jump throughout the entire code. And he got so proficient at it that he didn't even need a mouse to do his code. He just was able to use the keyboard so fast that he was able to, go through his code just by using the commands that were um, on that particular tool. So um, so when you get really familiar with you know a keyboard tool at your disposal, you can do a lot and really fast too. So as I was always impressed by what he could do. So To my knowledge, I think he's a professor now. Last I knew, last I remembered. I lost touch with him ever since he graduated from college. So, uh, okay. But yeah, we'll go ahead and skip out on that for now. We'll go,
Not yet.
we'll go on to the audio engine overview. Okay, so audio engine overview. An overview of features in the Unreal Audio Engine. So, the Unreal Audio Engine is a robust audio engine that supports a wide variety of features across all platforms supported by the Unreal Engine. Uh, Combined with the power of blueprints and a new multi-platform audio mixer that enables audio digital signal processing, um, or digital signal processing, DSP, procedural synthesis, a customizable submix graph, and a flexible C++ API, the audio engine is fully capable of shipping high-quality audio on any project and at any scale. This overview presents a snapshot of various subsystems and features that are utilized to solve high-level audio issues. So, source asset management. Overall asset management is straightforward. A guiding principle in Unreal Engine 4 asset management is to do things as directly as possible and handle things automatically whenever possible. And I need to kind of
Yeah,
looking at I'm looking at this sideways. I need to uh, look at it straight. Otherwise, I'm gonna mess up my. I'm in bad posture right at this moment in time. That's not good. Okay. Importing assets. Unreal Engine 4 supports direct import of audio assets into the content browser from the desktop by use of the file import dialog or by dragging audio assets directly into the browser. You can import a wide variety of asset types and channel formats. See how to import audio and audio files. Internally, Unreal Engine 4 stores the imported audio file in a 16-bit uncompressed WAV format. Okay. The U asset that contains the imported data is called a U sound wave, and it can be played directly from all Unreal Engine 4 audio gameplay APIs. The imported asset can also be previewed in the content browser by clicking the play button on the asset or pressing the spacebar when the asset is selected. Okay. Um, Content browser asset management tools. Now, Blackheart, just I'm gonna kind of continue reading, but if there's something that you want to like maybe talk about or discuss or something like that, obviously feel free to speak up and say,
Yep.
"Hey, Jim, shut up! I want to talk about something." Okay, so just want to make that clear. Apart from a well-organized content browser folder structure, well-designed bookmarks, and useful general content browser tools, audio assets in particular benefit greatly from the property matrix tool. To make mass edits to audio assets in Unreal Engine 4, select the assets you want to edit, then open the property matrix tool where you can make sweeping adjustments on up to hundreds of assets simultaneously. Uh-huh. Um, I, hmm. I'm kind of struck by that. It's like, what, you know, what would you need to change in like hundreds of audio files using a property matrix? It's like, sure, then, they're giving you that tool to make those changes, but, in my mind, I'm like, what would you need to change? You know, like I could see something like that, like maybe you need to shift all the assets. in a certain region over by like, a couple inches or meters or whatever, you know, in distance, or pixels, whatever, um, you need to change, locations of assets, for like hundreds of assets all at once, I can understand maybe doing something like that, but for audio,
I
I,
don't see much use there.
yeah, I'm not quite sure what, where you might actually need to do that. But then again, we're not audio engineers, so maybe there is a something that you may need to do. Um,
Yeah, if someone understands it, please let us know.
yeah, indeed, indeed. Or at least, give us an example of what, they're saying, sweeping adjustments to up to hundreds of assets simultaneously. Okay, well, what kind of sweeping adjustments would you say could happen? You know, or maybe hey, you dealt with this once before in like another game somewhere, or like maybe maybe you know actually I don't know what all the games that it was constructed on Unreal Engine, so I don't really know, but let's say like Elden Ring, for example. Maybe that, I don't know if it was actually constructed on Unreal Engine. Please don't come after me on that. But let's,
Octopath Traveler would be an example. That one was built on the Unreal Engine.
yeah. Um, you know what, you know what could have changed in there in the audio files that might need sweeping changes like across the board. You know, um, what you know Is it like maybe, hey, we wanted to add a reverb in this one building that affects like hundreds of sounds, maybe somehow? I don't know. It just seems a little odd, but I mean, I can see, you know, obviously when you want to make changes to like, multiple things, like, moving art assets around quickly and easily, I can understand that, but I can't really wrap my brain around, something that you might need to change with sound. So that's all. That's my confusion on the matter. So, but moving on.
Yeah.
Okay. So sound cues in the Unreal Audio Engine, the asset that is conceptual aggregation of multiple sound assets into an abstract sound object is the sound cue. It is not literally the sound itself, but the abstract concept of that sound. Okay, well, what do you mean by that? um, a sound cue is runtime evaluated, that is, a bundle of potential, not actual sound. Each time a sound cue plays, it may sound different, depending on the context in which it is used. Sound cues are one of the oldest tools in Unreal Engine 4. The sound cue editor gives sound designers a way to create their own sound design topologies that translate a simple play sound event into an arbitrary, complex, nuanced sound designed event. Okay. At a, at a high level, sound cues support asset randomization, gameplay driven parameter mapping, custom logic and branching resistance attenuation, volume attenuation, pitch shifting, and a large number of other features. Interesting. But yet it's not actually the sound itself. It's an abstract concept of said sound. So is it like, do they do like the sound cue to try to test out whether or not the sound actually works the way they want it to, and then they transfer it back to the actual sound file after that, or what? Um, maybe I'm not latching onto this very well.
Neither am I.
Hmm. Yeah, I'm not 100% sure on that one. Um, you know, they need to maybe be a little bit more uh clear on what they mean by abstract concept of that sound. I get okay, sure you're trying to do, sound cues support asset randomization, but why? You know, if sound cues aren't actually the sound itself, like you're not actually hearing it, it's not literally the sound itself, so you're not really hearing the sound cues, then what benefit does, you know, it's like, okay, asset randomization. Okay, why? Why would you want to do asset randomization? You know, is it something that you basically take the sound, you put it into a sound cue, you do the asset randomization, and you spit it right back out to the sound file? I don't know. I'm not quite sure what the purpose of sound cues are yet. So, um, they say sound cue editor provides a way of translating a simple play sound event into a complex, nuanced sound designed event, and it's like, well, how? you know. Sound cues can also be built using the Sound Cue Templates plugin, which is a simple C++ interface that sound designers can use to name specific sound cues, graph topologies, and logic to be automatically constructed and used from the matrix property editor and the content browser. In this way, a common sound cue graph can be defined, and the sound designer can use this to optimize the workflow. See Sound Cue Editor for more information. Now, we are going to be getting to the Sound Cue Editor later. That is down at the very bottom of the um, working with audio. Or at least I believe it's the um, same topic.
Could be.
It is. It is. So we don't really need to worry too much about that. We'll eventually get there.
Yeah.
And
Hello
oh
there, Leo. How you doing?
and oh boy, are we gonna have some fun when we get there. Yes, that sound and this sounds interesting. I'm kind of curious as to what goes into it and how it you know how you use the sound cues to do what you know what exactly does it do, kind of thing. You're
Yeah.
it's like, hey, you have all these you know already sound classes, playing these sounds, the sounds itself, then what is the purpose of a sound cue? You know, that's what I'm kind of like, odd. Not sure what's going on there, but we'll do what we can, I guess.
Hmm.
All right, well, moving on.
Yeah.
Okay. Spatialization and it.
Hey, okay there, Leo.
All right. Spatialization and attenuation in games is important. In the Unreal Audio engine, you can define custom spatialization and attenuation behavior. Uh, okay, that doesn't really give us much there. Um, in general, sound and attenuation settings are defined using the sound attenuation settings asset and hooked up to sounds by sound designers. There are a number of places where sound attenuation can be hooked up directly to sound assets within sound cues overridden in Blueprint. For more information, see sound attenuation, which again is at the very end of the section. So, um, but this beginning session didn't really tell us much
Nope.
at all. It's like, um,
Like
guys,
more like this should be after sound cues.
it's like, guys, um, what is spiralization? What is attenuation? You know, how do you find those? Maybe you should like maybe explain that a little bit more. What exactly does, is each one, you know, what is each one and how it works? Maybe, a little bit more detail. But I guess we'll have to wait on that until the actual section of sound attenuation. I guess they didn't really want to go
Yeah.
too much into detail because they already have a section for it.
Yep.
Or maybe because it covers so much that they're like going, okay, we're just gonna need to make our own web page for it because there's just
Yeah,
too
because
much
it's
here.
already gonna cover a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, so maybe, who knows? We'll see. All right. Non-spiralized sounds. Non-spiralized sounds are usually referred to as 2D sounds in the context of audio engines. Real audio supports playback of 2D assets by disabling spectralization in the sound's attenuation setting asset, or by not providing a sound attenuation asset. Using 2D sounds are useful for music, UI feedback sounds, and other number of cases where the position of the listener is static. Okay. Interesting. Position of the listener is static. Hmm. I'm trying to wrap my head around the whole 2D sounds, to be honest. Um, so, hmm. I mean, I guess, um, I guess if you're looking at like a platformer, like, Super Mario Brothers, for example, um, you don't have like sounds being like in a 3D space, um, like in a 3D Super Mario world kind of thing. If you knock off, if you hit like a turtle shell off to the left or something like that, you hear the sound of the turtle shell hitting the wall off to the left, then that's more of a 3D sound. But when you're playing like Super Mario Brothers, where it's just a flat space, you don't necessarily need to be hearing sound coming from like the left or the right. It's pretty much the same. Like in both of your ears, pretty much. It goes more stereo, I guess you might say. So,
Yeah. I guess it'll be more like situational. Like if I were to take a different example, like on Mario, I'm waiting for you to hear on both sides. But say you made a horror 2D platformer, and you have those sound cues telling you from which side of the screen that's where it's actually coming from.
I mean, there is that. Yeah. Um, Not too many. At least I haven't heard of too many 2D um, horror games, but no,
There's a few. There's a few.
I guess you could, I guess you could probably put like Five Nights at Freddy's, in there a little bit, where it's like, you hear like more sound coming from the left or like walking coming from the left, so you're kind of needing to like look on like the left side of the door, for example. So, yeah. Um, but I mean, they they're not um hmm. But I mean, would you consider that more of a 2D sound? I mean, they would be like lowering and raising up the volume of the sound coming into like the left ear, based off the distance, the 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 animatronic in that particular case, right, is closer to the door, right? So,
And usually you would only like hear the footstep right as it gets on the door.
no, I mean it, like I said, it kind of depends a little bit, but um, you can hear they can just basically kind of raise up the volume slightly as the enemy gets closer and closer to you on the left hand side. So, and obviously you wouldn't necessarily hear it in the right ear in that particular case. So, um, so I guess that still kind of qualifies a little bit in terms of uh, the 2D sound. You're not necessarily like, um, I guess when you think of 3D sound, you think like, when you only have like, a headset, for example, right? You only have two, um, you know, uh, speakers that you're listening to right at this moment. It's the game designer's um, responsibility, if they're trying to make a 3D space, to make it sound as though what they're hearing is off in a certain direction. Like, hey, I just heard this off to the, you know, um, to the northwest or something like that, right? Like if you're, um, you know, um, or whatever, So, um, like if you're like facing north and you're like you hear a sound to the northwest, you know, and so you're like, okay, well, that's gonna be interesting. Or yeah, we're hearing some activity over there. Should we go for it? Whatever. That to me sounds that to me would feel more of a like a 3D sound, right?
Right.
So, um, but you're not necessarily getting that kind of distinction um, from say like Five Nights at Freddy's, where it's more of a 2D game than anything else, right? So, um, so now they could try to mimic it as much as they can, but I mean, when it comes right down to it, you're not necessarily going, you know, they're not they're not necessarily playing the sound from that particular location that you're hearing. They're just kind of maybe like raising or lowering the volume kind of thing to mimic that, hey, this particular person is closer, or they're walking closer to you, or something along those lines, right?
Right.
So, or maybe I'm just being absolutely stupid in my, you know, determination on that. I don't know. What do you think? What do you feel?
I think it is kind of like what you're saying. Like, I haven't played Final Fantasy myself. I did play a clone, which was Nightmare Circus Babies, uh, which had directional audio on a 2D image in front of me, pretty much.
Hmm.
In one point, I actually had to kind of in the video, I had to like quiet down a bit and actually listen to my headset to determine, okay, from which side of the door is this guy coming, even
Hmm.
though what's in front of me is technically a static 2D image.
Right. So I've seen some players play Five Nights at Freddy's, like Markiplier, for example. So you
Yeah.
know, you know, um, just jump scares central there.
Yeah.
um, okay, so even though sound asset might be played without a special spatialization method, the asset can contain special information that is baked into it. Multi-channel sound sources such as quad, 5.1, and 7.1 sound sources are only supported in 2D playback. These are typically used for musical or ambient beds. Okay, why do they call it beds? I don't know.
I don't
Um,
know.
Stereo sound sources can be played back in 2D, but can also be spatialized. I don't know, whatever it is. I always keep on messing up that word. Let me. I keep on messing it up. So
Spatial.
I would probably mess it up as well. I would have to take a sort of a long look to realize how I'm supposed to say it.
spatial is Spatial, and
Spatialize.
spatialize is the other one. It's like, oh my gosh. It sounds as though you need, spatialize sounds like you need that C in there, but it's not. It's like, mm.
Yeah.
I always think back to my dad whenever he said, "You have to sound it out." It's like, oh God, Dad, what are you doing? you know, I never was able to do anything along those lines. Okay, specialized sounds. By default, when spatialization is enabled by attenuation settings, sounds are spatialized using panning. Panning is a process of changing the amplitude of sound in physical output speaker channels based on the angle of that sound relative to the orientation of the listener.
That would be more 3D there.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yes. Non spatialized is more for the 2D sounds, and obviously spatialized sounds is for the 3D. So, Unreal Audio supports panning for multiple audio output configurations, stereo 5.1 and 7.1, and for both mono and stereo source assets. For stereo assets, there is a stereo spread parameter that defines the virtual distance between left and right input channels for the source. In this way, the stereo source left and right channels are panned nihilistically to a mono source and relative to the listener. There are two global panning modes that sound designers can configure to use in projects: linear panning and equal power panning. Okay. Linear panning performs a simple linear crossfade between output channels. Not quite sure exactly what that means.
Nah, wouldn't know what crossfade is actually referring to.
Yeah, it's like what exactly is a simple linear crossfade? And what output channels are you referring to? You know, what is this all about output channels? And I'm not really understanding that unless they're talking about like the left and right channels, which might be like the left and right speakers, maybe.
He's probably referring to the speakers, maybe, yeah.
They you know you you hear output channels, but maybe in your maybe maybe because they can't necessarily say that every output that you have might not necessarily go through like an actual speaker because I mean do you consider your headset as speakers? I mean y-
Technically speaking, it has two speakers. speakers. Like then there would be two channels, the left and the right one.
Right. And but that's their point, I think.
Yeah.
I think that's what's going on there because
If you have a five speaker setup, each speaker would be its own little channel.
right. Maybe that's what's going on here. Like, they have multiple output configurations, up above, supports panning for multiple output configurations, stereo, which is left and right, 5.1, which is typically five speakers, 7.1 is typically seven, and for both mono and stereo source assets. So maybe the output channels is kind of referring to, these different values there. Please correct me if I'm wrong, or, let me know if I'm actually right in the comments and chat and stuff like that. Or maybe I'm not, maybe I'm close but not correct either. I mean, feel free to let us know about that. But again, even if I am right about like the output channels, like stereo 5.1 and 7.1, what exactly does it mean by simple linear crossfade? You know, uh,
I'm guessing like if it's close to, let me think of an example. You got like the five uh speakers setup. Two on one side, two on the other, and of course the front and the back. Maybe the cross fade is referring like, yeah, one of the speaker sounds louder, but the ones adjacent to that you can hear, but it's a lower volume maybe.
maybe, or maybe it's along the lines of um, like you're driving along, like you're driving along a roadway, right? And you're like on a two-lane road or something like that, and you're passing another car that might have a really loud motor or something like that. So as you're getting closer to it, you hear it like in front of you, and as you start passing it, the sound kind of travels from the front to the side to behind as you're passing them. So, maybe that's kind of what's going on here. Maybe,
Maybe.
you know. I mean, that's pretty much exactly what you said, but um that's the only thing that I can think of, like, the crossfade, you know. I don't know. Maybe, well, like I said, feel free to explain it down below there. I want to finish off the um, specialized sounds before we shut down. Is that okay with you?
Yeah, that is a-okay with me.
Okay. Equal power panning maintains the power amplitude squared between output channels. Okay. Um, Maintains the power. Amplitude, I think, is the size of the wave, I think.
It's a fine equation. I don't remember exactly that for what.
Yeah. Um, I know power, has an effect on sound and whatnot, obviously, but uh, yeah, I'm not really remembering that either. Um, okay, well, someone's probably gonna need to kind of explain that one as well. And how does it apply to output channels as well would be nice. So, since perception of volume is based on the power of the sound, maintaining equal power for panning results in a more perceptually constant volume pan. Linear panning results in sound appearing louder as it gets closer to the physical speaker location and quieter when it is between speaker locations. Okay. Um, but why would you want it to be quieter between speaker locations, though? Now I can understand like if you're like I said before, like if you're traveling from, if you're passing something, then one sound from one speaker will get quieter while but one will get louder. So um I mean quieter doesn't necessarily work unless of course the the sound is trying to go away from you. So I don't know. That seems kind of weird on that one.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, unless do you have anything that you can add to that there, Blackheart? Do you feel like, there's something here that you can probably um any examples that you can think of maybe? If not, we can just kind of say, okay, guys, comment section.
And an example I can think of this, uh, I don't know if a game's done this before. Like if something like thrown at you, then goes by right next to your character's head, and that will be like when it's as it gets closer, it gets a loud object, and once it passes past you, then that's when it starts to get quieter.
Yeah, but I'm just kind of curious about why it's saying quieter when it's between speaker locations. It's like, sometimes one speaker will get louder as one will get quieter. So saying that both speakers might be quieter is not true. So that's why I'm like, this particular part kind of throws me off a little bit. But that's why I'm kind of curious as to what they're kind of talking about there. But that's all. All right, well, leave it up for the comments again,
Yeah.
and we'll move on. Okay. Unreal Audio also supports specialization using third-party plugins with a robust and flexible C++ API. Third-party plugins can specialize sounds however they want, including binaural, HRTF specialization, and ambient-sonics, sound field encoding and decoding. Wow, that was a mouthful. Plugins can provide their own asset settings that can be hooked up to the attenuation settings asset. Um, okay, so sure.
For someone that actually knows sound engineering or something. Because
Yeah.
I mean, what?
I mean, um, third-party plugins, sure. That's good, and
Yeah,
uh, with a flexible C++ API, no problem. That's
like problems
that's
there.
no problems on that one. Especially if you have a third party that you really want to use, like maybe you have a sound mixer or something like that you want to really use or something. I don't know.
You know the
Um,
sound quality's good, and you just want to keep on using it.
yeah, or you have certain tools in like a sound mixer that you got used to using, and so you want to kind of continue using that in the Unreal engine. So you plug that in, but um, this right here, the including HRTF and all that, encoding and it's like
Binaural and RTF? No, what
what?
it is.
Okay, no idea. So
Nope. I have no idea what they're referring with. Binaural and HRTF. I don't even know what HRTF would stand for.
yeah, yeah, no idea. So that will have to wait for comments. So
Yeah.
all right, well, that's gonna be it for our engine audio engine overview for time being. We'll go ahead and continue with the distance attenuation tomorrow. And obviously, there's still a lot to go through. I mean, just going through this entire um, topic here,
Yeah, there's a lot of topics on it.
and it looks like some of them are referencing, I mean, there's still some topics here that are referencing other topics, such
Yeah.
as the sound cue editor, sound attenuation. I'm seeing a make sound concurrency setting, whatever that is. Um, so audio modulation, which I don't even see that on this list actually.
Mhm.
Oh, maybe it's one that we've already covered. So
All right, the first one.
yeah, one of the first ones that we had. So okay, but yeah, it's one of those things where it's like, whew, there is a lot to cover here,
Mm.
um, but we need to remember distance attenuation for tomorrow.
Yep.
So okay then, but that's going to be it for today's Unreal study session.
I'm
Um,
just going to eat before
indeed.
my next stream.
Yep. And then you got what is it? Homeworld tonight?
No, I finished it.
Oh, okay.
So
Uh,
I'm starting Rebel Galaxy now.
what galaxy?
Rebel Galaxy.
Rebel Galaxy. Mm-hmm.
I've had it there on my library for quite some time. I've been wanting to play it, and now I have an excuse to play it.
Actually, not sure.
To explain to you the gameplay, it's take battleships but on space.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to worry about up or down on this game.
Gotcha. All right.
If you were like to introduce someone to space sim, like Rebel Galaxy would be the an easy game to jump into because
Yeah.
you only have to worry about one plane, and that's the X and C axes. There's no Y axis.
Hmm. Okay. Kind of reminds me a little bit about uh what's the name of it? It's like oh, what was the name of that game again? Um um
Is there another space sim?
there's an old game that I played. Um a space game.
The only
I've
game I can think of, Freelancer. What was the other one?
um
For those that play Freelancer, like it's similar to that but easier.
Sword of the Stars. There it is.
Which one?
It's a game called Sword of the Stars. Um, it's an older game, but you know it was a fun little strategy. Basically a 4X kind of game for the most part. So
I
it was
think I've seen it before, but I don't think I exactly played it.
yeah it was released back in 2006. So it's an older game, but
Yeah.
I had fun with it. I had fun with it, and there was a lot of DLCs with it as well. So or not not a ton of DLCs, like a couple, I think, like one or two. I forget.
Well, expansions. I
Yeah,
think this was before DLCs were a thing.
yeah. But um, for the most part, it was a fun game back in the day. But that
Hmm.
that kind of gave me the same vibes. But with Sword of the Stars, it is kind of more 3D. So um, so more in line of Homeworld and what you're going to be than Rubble. So, all right. Well, enjoy that game. I'm gonna be playing some Star Rail myself tonight. So,
Nice.
um,
Fun.
yep, thank you.
And
Uh,
good luck with your polls.
indeed, indeed. Let's see. Uh, Actually, I don't know when does the banner end?
I
Is
think you still have a little bit of time.
yeah. I know the um there's I still have the tickets to earn, and actually I think I still have like uh, the four more tickets to gain. I didn't I wasn't like, going there too much, too much on the daily, so I couldn't get all the special passes, um, but yeah, um, but yeah, um, still got a storyline to kind of get through on that one.
Yeah.
So I feel very behind because World 3 just keeps on being a pain in the ass.
Yeah. I made it to the end and lost on phase 3.
What?
The boss at the end is divided into phases on World 3 of the simulated universe.
Yeah, when you're facing off against what's his name?
T
Um,
part.
yeah.
I got to phase 3 and I lost there.
Oh, that's unfortunate. Yeah, it's a rough fight because of
Yeah,
the
like
fact that
he's
I've been able to get past him, but it's just such a long fight
it's
because he does his like special ability that basically says, "Hey, we're gonna put up a wall against
yeah,
everybody."
it's because he's a shielder. Even when
Yep,
you have him, he's a shielder. And
yep.
that shield is beefy as hell.
Oh yeah, it is. Oh yeah,
And man, the strength of the guards he summoned on phase 3 is so high.
yep. They definitely tear through you pretty good. So
Yeah, I might wait till I go up an equilibrium level and go in over leveled
indeed.
because I think they are level locked.
Maybe, probably.
I
Yeah.
mean, I looked at World 2 and it says level 35 on
Hmm.
World 2. So I'm assuming that these are kind of funny, kind of like the Spiral Abyss sort of, where the levels are locked for each floor.
Yeah. Yeah. It definitely feels that way. Um, but I still need to unlock. There's like one other area that I need to get to unlock one last um like a special fight to get resources for one of my, I think, Kefka that I'm
Oh,
working
you're
on.
looking for a stagnant shadow.
Yeah. So
Yeah, I still haven't found mine for Fu
yeah. So
and Lynx. I've been using her as my healer now since she's kind of better than Natasha.
yeah. I'm hoping
Well,
to get the new one that's been introduced because
how do you do it? That was a good one, and I got lucky, and I'm still working on that character.
oh, you got her?
Yeah, I got her the last time I played.
Nice.
Near the end, I believe I got it.
Okay. Yeah, my current healer right now, I mean, she does a good job, for the most part.
Where
Um,
you're using the Dragon Girl.
yeah, but the problem with
I've seen
her,
a lot of people use her.
well, the problem with her is the fact that one, her healing is random. Like I can,
Hmm.
when you put like if you use her ability, once, it heals them once, but then it might randomize to others. So if like you really need like major healing on that one character, you might not get it because it might randomize to two other characters. When in fact you're like, I really need all three there, you know.
Yeah.
So it's like. And I
Yeah,
do
I've
appreciate.
been using links on it right now.
Hmm.
I think you have it as well.
What do you mean?
Um, Serval's sister, the girl, who her ultimate, she pulls out a giant pill and throws it up into the air. I
Uh,
think she's hmm?
you the giant pillar, giant bear.
a giant pill. I'm not using a touch anymore.
Okay.
I think you have
Um.
her actually. She's the other blonde girl wearing like a blue snow outfit.
Hmm, I'm not sure. Um. But I do know that I'm kind of appreciating the one that is trying to be released like right now because
Yeah,
one, her healing is kind of more focused on the single individual.
yeah.
So, and
Like
two,
greater healing on the main target, lesser healing on adjacent characters.
yeah. The addition about it is the fact that she clears debuffs, which is
Yeah,
so important.
yeah.
Like,
And her ultimate makes it so that the character that uses an ultimate gets healed as well.
yeah, so I find her to be very, extremely useful in my particular opinion because
Yeah,
um like I've lost characters because of debuffs, you know, like they get hit with like the slashing, like cutting debuff on them, so like whenever it's their turn, they get
the
hit like with like 20 hits. It's like,
yeah, bleeding, the
yeah,
bleeding effect.
yep. So it's
Yeah,
like,
Cherry bleeding, shock, shred,
yep,
and burn.
yep. So it's like, I really need that to really be like I don't have any characters that really do that very well. I think I have like maybe one or two that clears debuffs, but they're not really healers either. So, I wanted both in the same, right? But
Yeah,
I was never able to find, you know, I was never really able to find them together.
yeah,
So when you have a healer that can also clear debuffs, it's like, oh, I must.
yeah.
So, so
I
I'm,
need my team is an imaginary character. That's what I need.
yeah. All right,
I have so many enemies that are weak to imaginary, and I can't abuse it.
I gotta stop the recording so people that are actually watching for the Unreal Engine are like going, "What are you guys talking about?" So for those of you watching for the Unreal, I want to thank you for watching. I appreciate it. But I'll
Yes.
go ahead and stop the recording now. Um, so yeah.